pioneering journalist, broadcaster, author, comedian, and one of Australia's most influential voices for women. Wendy Harmer has spent decades using humour, heart, and honesty to amplify women's stories and challenge the status quo. From the comedy stage to primetime radio and print, she's opened doors, broken glass ceilings, and shown generations of women like me what it means to speak up, stand tall, and stay true. In this conversation, we're exploring Wendy's journey as a fearless storyteller and how she continues to champion women's voices in a world still learning to listen. Wendy Harmer, welcome. I said when we were off air that you've been an accidental elder to me, which is where you didn't know you were like a mentor and inspiration, but you truly have been, because you always show up real. And I've modeled that. Thank you.
Well, you are so very welcome, Jen, and what a thrill to be here with you.
Thank you.
I'm looking at your background there. Believe
I'm a surfer and I'm a hippie chick.
Oh, well, welcome. Not a surfer so much, but married to a surfer for 30 years, who my husband Brendan
I saw a video of him. He's a shortboarder.
Yeah, he was the chairman of the Australian chapter of the Surfrider Foundation, and still runs the Northern Beaches branch. But we will get to that, because one of the things I would like to talk about is the marriage where the woman goes to work and earns the money and the husband stays home and looks after the kids. And the idea of the stay-at-home husband was one of these things that was, this will be the trend. This is what's going to happen. This was all talked about 30 years ago. And do you know the rate of men who stay home and look after the children while the women go to work has not changed in those 30 years? It's still about 5%. So I really feel that I'd like to think that I've kind of modeled that idea of an upside down marriage and who's the earner and who's the whatever. But I don't think I've made a bit of a difference, Jen.
So, all right, let's go straight there, Wendy. Okay. Come on, you opened that door. Let's do it. Because you're the breakfast radio show host, and he's a cool surfer dude and all those things. But he was a town planner or something.
Yes, Brendan did qualify as a town planner. And when we met, he was working for the National Trust, with restoring old buildings and blah, blah, blah. And then when we met, I remember I said, listen, I earn enough money for the both of us. Why would both of us be tortured by having to go to work? And so we came to the arrangement that I would go to work and earn the money, and the money that I earned would go to him being able to be an environmental activist. And that's what he's done with great aplomb. And besides, me going, we'll talk about, I'm sure, getting up at 4 a.m. to go work on breakfast radio. But the thing, I guess, is that we just came to this sort of great arrangement. I remember Annabelle Crabb wrote about the great wife drought, but she didn't include me in that book, which has always pissed me off, to tell you the truth, because there I was on breakfast radio in Sydney on the airwaves and talking about my husband taking the kids to school. Do you know what, Jen?
What, Wendy?
I never did a school drop-off or pick-up in my entire life.
And you've got a couple of kids.
Yeah, they're in their 20s now. They're going really well.
You did that well.
I certainly did.
There's a lot of mothers who would be just like so jealous of that.
I know. And when my husband proposed to me, he said, and he's a very sentimental man, but he's a masculine man.
Yeah, he's a bloke.
I mean, whatever the fuck that means. God, who knows what that is?
Especially
just
nowadays.
Oh, yeah. Please, don't even start me on that particular spectrum. But anyway, he said, I'll always be your 2IC, And I went, great. And I'll tell you, Jen, we had 2 kids later in life, And I'd be going off to breakfast radio at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I swear to God, I would punch the air as I walked out the door, leaving him
to do school lunches on the whole
everything.
bit. Oh, I'm fucking out of here!
And then when I eventually gave up breakfast radio for a while there, and my daughter was about 4 or 5, she said, "Mum, can you order lunch for me at school?" I went,
"Don't know how."
"What's a lunch order?" No idea. But it's never been. And you look like these idiots like Nick Fuentes, who and these new raft of men who are continuing the war on women, saying that educated career women ruin managers, turn men into incels. Real men marry accomplished, ambitious women.
Yeah, they're not intimidated by them.
They're not intimidated by it, because
Agreed.
what we realize is, in that partnership that we have, is that we're both equipped to do these roles. Not that I'm a shit mother, I should say.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But I will admit, I used to buy my way out of a lot of shit with, toys and crap, whatever. But
I think we've all done that.
Ours is a real partnership, and it has meant that we have a very good life. And I wish that more men and women could come to this arrangement. I mean, it is something that same-sex couples come to.
Totally.
And so there is not that idea of what is masculine and what is feminine. You go, "Are you good at that? Are you good at that? That's good. Let's set up our lives around that." And so, anyway, I don't know why I've launched into this as
I don't know, but I'm up for taking it first. But that's one of the things I love about you, is that you've not done life by the rules. You've done you. Were you always like that when you were younger?
Well, the big part of my story, of course, is that I was born with a bilateral cleft palate and lip. And so the story is about that, is that these days, with this affliction, or whatever condition, whatever you want to call it, I mean, most children have their restorative surgery done when they're babies, which is a tremendous advance. But when I was born in 1955, I'm in my 70th year, Jen. 70. When I was born in 1955, that wasn't the case. So I did not have my corrective surgery, apart from being a rudimentary sort of patch up, with a bit of a stitch here and there. I did not have this face that you see me with now until
and it's a ripper.
Oh, thank you. Until I was in my teens. So I went through all those years with a quite obvious facial deformity. And so I guess if you were to look at any indicator of how I've made my life and how I've chosen to be, I guess that would be the one prime motivator. Also, I mean, my family background is not great. My mum, when I was at the age of 10, she tried to take her own life with pills, and she left home, leaving my father with 4 kids under 10. And so, and she never came back to the family household. By the way, she's 86 now, lives in Tasmania, and is happy as a clam. But she never wanted to come back to the family.
You didn't want to make your bloody school lunch.
Yeah, no, she didn't. That's hereditary.
Yeah. You learned it well.
So I guess those factors really do play into my ambition and the way I formed my life. So in a nutshell, those two things. Broken, like weird looking, bad family.
Go on, tell me you're from the western suburbs. Top it off. I'm a western suburbs kid.
No. From the country. Victoria. where there were Dad was a school teacher, so we moved every 3 years. And so I was always fetching up in a new school the weird looking kid in the wrong colour school uniform whose father was a teacher. Just have a think about that, Jen.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take on.
Well, kids can be cruel at the best of times. That's you did good to get through that.
Well, I did. I was sort of lucky that Dad was there in some ways to fight my battles, some of my battles for me. But there is a real theory. Well, I think it's quite a contested theory about tough love. Okay. And of course, back in the 50s, 60s, tough love was what it was all about. And now, if we sort of come to this era, we would say that children are mollycoddled and helicopter parenting. Now, somewhere in there is the actual personality of the child. And I seem to have been born with a little indomitable spirit. I was just a fierce little thing. And my friend, one of my best friends, is a Catholic priest, and he says, Wendy, you have an adamantine sense of self. Now, I don't diamond hard that adamantine.
Oh, okay, all right.
Now, I don't know where that comes from, Jen. I suspect it's mostly genetics. I somehow was just born as a tough little girl, and that has always served me well. You can now. Babies are not born resilient. No. I remember someone said to me not that long ago, "Oh, well, you really lucky, Wendy, because you're resilient." I go, luck has nothing to do with resilience. Now, babies are not born resilient. Now, there are some who can develop resilience. There are some who can't at all because of their makeup. And so the idea that you can make any child resilient, I think, is false. Some children with the kind of upbringing that I had, which was get out and find your own battles and fight your own battles. Don't come whinging to me, what is wrong with you, whatever. That would work with some children, but it won't work with others. So I sort of discount that idea that I think you can engender or, attempt to teach resilience, but for some children that doesn't take. So obviously, especially, but I wrote my memoir a year or so ago, and it was called Lies My Mirror Told Me. And that title came about, Jen, is I was about 8 years old, I suppose. And the kids at school were picking on me because of my face.
Yep.
And I was called, I had a profile that looked like, one of those cartoon characters that walked into a door, flat, completely flat, and, no front teeth, and all that. And I came home complaining about it, and my mother said, I want you to go into the bedroom and look into the mirror, and when you can find something to complain about, you come out and tell me. Well, I just wasn't brave enough to say, well, actually, Mum. And so I came out and I said, I've got nothing to complain about. And she said, right, well, on we go. And one day you will have an operation and you will look just as beautiful as anyone else. Well, I had that fucking operation and I didn't look beautiful as everyone else, but
I think
you go on.
Right. It's interesting. I'm curious if your sense of comedy came out of part of your coping mechanism.
No. Well, I would say, well, only in one respect, but not in another. In one respect, when I started I was working as a journalist.
Yep.
In the 80s, and I was sent along one night to write a feature article about this new cabaret, the new wave of cabaret. And I was at the time working as a political journalist in Melbourne, and I went out to see this show, and it was just like, Jen, it was like going to the circus. It was just like, oh, I'd never been to cabaret before. And because I've grown up in the country, I'd never been even to the theatre. And so I was sent along to this little inner city sort of venue in Melbourne. And I saw this amazing show. And two things about it struck me. Um, one, that it was an extraordinary way to be able to express yourself, without any filters and all that kind of gear. But the other thing was that there were really, and I started sort of going around all the comedy venues, there weren't many women doing comedy.
Yeah, not
so
me.
Part of my motivation was, you're correct, to get up there and say, well, you've always stared at me, so why don't you take a really good long look? Okay, here I am. The second part was completely altruistic, which was, women are not represented here, and I want to represent women. See, when I first started out in comedy, all the stand-up comedians were men.
Mm.
And so the women would be sitting in the audience while men talked about their football matches or their sport or their families or their cars or whatever. And I would be sitting there going, well, where's the women's experience? So when I got up to do stand-up comedy, that I had written routines about Barbie dolls and going shopping with your mum and dressing up and all those kind of girly things. And here's what happened. I remember one night at the Last Laugh, one of my male comedians, compatriots, he said, you know what the difference is, Wendy? He said, when you're on stage, we hear something really different. I said, oh, what was that? He said, instead of hearing ho, 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 we hear he, he. It's like the women, instead of, nudging their boyfriends to ask, is that funny? The men were nudging their girlfriends to say, is that funny? Yeah. And that to me was really important. There was a sense of justice there. So, yes, twin motivations to getting into comedy, both to slay personal dragons, but also to write what I saw at the time as being a male domain where women's voices weren't represented. The one thing that drives me crazy, and we don't hear it so much anymore, there was this time a few years ago where saying, oh, women aren't funny. Well, you know what, Chen?
We're fucking hilarious.
The pet budgie can make you laugh, apparently. The dog can make you laugh, but a woman can't make you laugh? Fuck that. And yeah. I think that we've moved on from that, and I'm really glad about it. And I'm really glad to have been a part of that vanguard in Australian comedy that said, yes, women can be funny.
They can. So what year did you do your first stand-up?
It would have been about 1984, I think.
Okay.
I got a part in a sketch, a sketch show, because in the 80s, in that time in the 80s, this new cabaret had exploded, and there were all these little venues all over Melbourne. And so I'd been, this is hilarious, right? So I've been to this, to write this feature article. I've been sent to write this feature article for the newspaper. The Herald Sun News Pictorial, but another, beg your pardon, became the Herald Sun. The Sun News Pictorial, which was the biggest selling newspaper in Australia at the time. Nice. I'm really almost selling as many copies as some titles in Fleet Street. So very, very influential.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of doing, politics, town hall, all that, state rounds, all that stuff. So after I went and I wrote this feature article, I was so entranced by it. I couldn't get it out of my mind. And I went back into the office and I said, I think I'm going to quit and be a performer in comedy. And they went, what even the fuck are you talking about?
And what the fuck does that mean? Because women weren't in that role in those days.
I hear now later that, friends of mine who were there at the time had said, oh, we've got to stage an intervention. What is this woman talking about? So actually I left that newspaper and I went on and took up a job at a little local community free newspaper. And 3 days a week, I was a journalist. I was still working in urban affairs, which is my total love, married to the town planner.
Nice.
There's the connection. And then the other 3 days, I worked on my stand-up comedy routine. But, and I managed to also grab a gig in a comedy review in Fitzroy with some names that I think Australian listeners might recall, with Marianne Fay and Ian McFadgen, those people who, Peter Moon.
Yeah.
And so, Marianne was pregnant, and so I got her gig. And so I played that gig, but what was always nagging at me was I didn't want to play a character in a sketch show. I actually wanted to be me, like the boys, And so I wrote a stand-up comedy routine. And the first night was an open mic night at the Last Laugh in Collingwood. And I can remember this so vividly. I'm standing backstage waiting to go on, and everyone is saying, oh, you must be so nervous. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, well, I don't actually feel very nervous, but, cool. And so I walked on stage, Jen, took up the microphone, lights hit me, started talking. I went, you mean this is it? You mean I get to say what I think and they put the lights on me and I get paid? This is the fucking best thing in the whole world. And it was my life changed there on the spot. So there you go.
So no fear, nothing. Just you don't remember being scared. That was something I was going to ask you. Nothing. It was just like destiny.
Well, I often think I wasn't born with as many nerve endings as some people. Because for me, doing a night of stand-up comedy was like taking a walk bath, Yeah,
okay.
Does
it still excite you that much?
Yeah, it's always fun.
Yeah.
I still do, here's the thing. I do a lot of public speaking. If it's funny, it's stand-up comedy. If it's not funny, it's public speaking. But I'm actually going to be doing a stage show with a girlfriend later on this year, hopefully. Get back to the old comedy boards. But
I hope you tour up this way.
Oh, thank you.
Gold
Where
Coast.
are you?
Gold Coast.
Oh, the Goldie.
Yeah.
Well, when I launched my
book
to the
on the GC.
Goldie, when I launched my book there recently on the Goldie, I had like 400 women turn up. So you bet I'm going to come there.
Oh yeah.
But anyway,
women here get into it big time.
So the thing is, I guess that I'm not a very nervy person. When things start to look a bit pear-shaped, I tend to sort of calm down, look around at the options, and if they don't present themselves, I just have to laugh at the fate of the puny ambition, really. So I guess I was really equipped in many ways to, I did the London comedy circuit. I traveled to America. I did the circuit there. And then I did, TV. I ended up on the big gig. And I think my particular personality really helped with that. I'm not really a panicky person, So as I say, there is something, and I'm not meaning to brag about this. I don't mean to think I'm special, but I mean, or in any way. But there is probably just some temperaments that are suited to be a big fat show off and not worry when things go to shit.
Well, you've nailed the profession then, because you do it very well.
Oh, thanks, Jen.
Yeah, I'm a kid of the born in 61, and interesting childhood, but really.
Do you feel the same about yourself?
Yeah, look, I came from the definitely School of Hard Knocks, western suburbs of Brisbane, really.
Wow.
Tough.
So where's that? That's Logan and
in Nala.
Oh, okay.
In those days, there was no Logan.
Right.
Nala.
Okay.
In Nala. And right next door was the Wacol Detention Centre.
So what do you think, what do you think makes a child or a young person able to survive the hard knocks and that differs them from another person, do you think? What would you put that down to?
Look, I asked myself that a lot. I came from a really physically abusive family.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
At the same time, 5 kids. I left home at 17, literally ran away from home as quick as I could and joined the army.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then got kicked out of the army for being a big old dyke. But I think that I got away, changed my mindset. Because I look at other people in my family and extended family who stayed home and could be said to be stuck in that victim mentality.
Yeah, but what do you think it was about you
at that time?
That what was it about you that made you get out, as compared to other people who stayed, may I ask?
I always knew I had to get out. I started.
But why? But this is the thing,
it was it was too fucking horrific. I remember.
No, I know, but I know all that.
But
do you think there is something in your
makeup
person? Yes.
Look, whether it's past life kind of shit, but I was going to survive no matter what. And so I internalized a lot to cope. So very much the introvert and hid from the world, which is interesting as a speaker and doing the work I do, because I stretch and be the extrovert, but coping mechanism, I just went inside. I was the nerd at school, bullied for being the nerd, dyslexic, ADHD, failed, left school at 10, grade 10, failed, all that stuff, had all the stuff that said I wasn't going to be successful. But I don't know if it's resilience or just like, fucking watch me.
Now, that rings a
bit of a pissed off thing. Don't fucking hold me back.
I understand that. Here is, in psychological terms, what is said is that there's a big difference between a child who is resilient and a child who isn't, and that is one or maybe two older people who can nurture and be a connection and be there for that child. With me, it was my father. Did you have that person?
No.
No.
No. Really.
Was there a friend or?
No. It was. No. Dad was incredibly violent. He's still alive, and I'm his carer nowadays. I've made peace with that. Mum, I hated more because she let it happen. Didn't understand at that age. It was, her surviving as well. Outsiders, no. I had grade 5, Mr. Stanley.
There you go.
Grade 5. So
there's always one.
12-year-old.
There's always one. There was always one.
He gave me hope.
Anyone listening to this, I would say, if you could be that one.
Be that one for other people. Big time. Be the auntie. Be the cool auntie. Yeah. Mr. Stanley.
As I say, this is as psychologists say, the difference between a child who is resilient and isn't is even one person. So if you can be that person, yeah,
it was huge. Yeah. And at the same time, I haven't let it hold me back, and I haven't done tons of psychoanalysis, and I've definitely done work on myself in my natural health kind of field. I've done a lot of work to make peace with stuff. And it's really, I find it interesting to see how kids can grow up in the same household and have such different lives today and stories attached.
Yeah, sure.
It's big. It's big stuff. But I didn't go into comedy.
Sounds like you should have.
Oh, I was a smart ass kid, which got me in a lot of trouble. So I would deflect pain, emotional pain with one-liners. So I can throw out a one-liner.
Well, you see, the thing for me was when I got into comedy, I had a couple of things going for me. One, that I'd been standing up in all male bars, you know, the journalists, we always used to gather at the Phoenix Hotel in Melbourne and all the repartee would come out. So I kind of learned how to hold my own within a bunch of men and tell a yarn that could elicit a laugh. So there was that one thing. The other thing was that I'd seen a lot of comedy, and because I was a writer, I knew how the jokes work. I went, I can write that joke. I know how to make that joke work. So that was sort of really good. So on the first night that I got up there, I mean, I had like a 6-minute routine or something. About maybe 3 minutes of it worked, but enough to be going on with. And so I would listen back or review the script the next day going, well, that worked and that didn't work. So this is where my kind of journalism training came in. I wanted to be a journalist since I was like 12 years old or something. So that's where that came in. And then, of course, I was so lucky in a way to grow up in that era with all the men around me, because they were, despite what you might think, they were really accommodating. They really wanted to have a girl on the bill, you know. Tell you who weren't so accommodating were the radical separatist lesbians. Fuck, did they give us a hard time, Jen?
I've never fitted into that genre.
About wearing
yeah, I'm
lipstick.
very mainstream lesbian.
And look, I
get it.
My friend Marianne Fay and I, we wrote this whole live sketch show called Faking It, which was a huge hit and ran for a long time. And in that, we took on all the sort of tropes. We sent up sort of fat farms and women's talkback shows and aerobics, and you know, when I say fat farm, we did a version of Prisoner, but we were in a fat farm, you know, very funny. I played Queen Bee, and Jane Turner was Lizzie, you know. But the separatists at the time said that we were sending up women, and that was the wrong message. Now, they had that completely wrong, because what we were doing was saying we want to stake a claim in comedy here, and it's not about sending up women. It's about showing that we can make men and women laugh at the human condition.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember Marianne Fay and I, we did a double act there for a while. And one night at Le Joke, you know, upstairs in the little bar there where I'd started out, she and I were doing a show, and half the audience was a Bucks night, and the other half of the audience had just come in from the Universal Theatre where they'd seen Robin Archer's Pack of Women. Now, these two groups of people should have never been in the same space together. Okay.
No. Did a fight break out?
Oh, well. So, Marianne starts the show with, it's called Faking It. She starts the show with, oh, sorry about having a man in the show, but he was the only one who could operate the tape deck, you know. And there was like a low hiss. And then at some point in proceedings, I had this character called Val, the cleaning lady, who wore an apron and just got after everybody. I walked up to the girls and said, "G'day, girls. You know, you're out here by yourselves." That old classic. There's a bunch of blokes over there. Play your cards. You could be... Anyway, they just erupted en masse, and they chased Marianne and I down the back stairs into the car park in their Doc Martens boots. So we were being very provocative, but it was enormous fun. It was just ridiculous. So when people, I'm actually very disturbed though, Jen. I hear sometimes that female comedians, women comedians these days, they talk about the sexism that they feel when they're in comedy clubs and out on stage. And I think, holy shit, this is 45, years later, and the same shit's going down. So the war on women never stops,
It hasn't. And the world wasn't politically correct back then. And so we all said stuff that won't fly nowadays.
Oh my God, of course, yes.
I was one of the boys when I was younger, joined the army at 17 and messed it up as, amongst the guys all the time. So I was an interesting chick. I've always been very mainstream. I don't fit that lesbian separatist model.
Well, you see, that was the thing when I started out in radio. I soon worked out, the best way was to be one of the boys. I mean, that is not pulling them up.
Yeah.
That's not pulling them up on everything but here's the line. Don't fucking step over that line. I won't hear all the, I'll put up with the swearing and the casual, whatever, but any really disparaging bad stuff, it's not happening on my watch. You know what I mean? So there were lines that you actually had to draw. So going into radio was really interesting.
Have those lines changed over the years? Like society's changed over the years. So you're a 70-year-old woman now, Wendy.
Yes.
So back then, when you started coming into radio, did you have those same lines? Because I've always seen you as that don't fucking mess with me, fierce woman.
Yeah.
Has that line changed as you've aged? Like I've gotten louder and that line's kind of come closer. Like I'm more protective of women now than I ever was when I was younger.
Well, I would just say by sort of dint of success, as a female personality who was, hosted the big gig, was the first, and who headlined the first to sort of headline a radio show, a commercial radio breakfast show, and all the other things. I think that I don't know where I put myself with that. I don't know. I don't really understand, Jen. I don't really understand where young women are coming from and the lines they have to draw and the battles they have to make every day. But I would really hope that I've been able to be some kind of example. I remember, someone sent me a message on social media for my 70th birthday and said, happy birthday. You were the person that made me think that a woman hosting a live television show was normal. You know what I mean? So I'd like to think
because you were real. You weren't this.
Well, I mean,
perfect's the wrong word.
It was just it wasn't even that particularly, because I think most comedians are real, but I think it's more that wow. A chick was given this gig, and I don't think chicks are given those gigs particularly. I think, it's always one step forward, two steps back, I think. And with the rise of evangelism and Christian nationalism, and, in the US, and as I say, Nick Fuentes saying that women cannot, he says, this is this right-wing podcaster, he says women can only be three things: mothers, nuns, or whores. And he's playing to this enormous group.
Yeah.
And you just think, holy Toledo, where do we go with this? I mean, and there's a couple of Republicans that I was looking at, online this morning, proposing the death penalty for women for abortion.
Abortions. Yeah,
so,
they are.
I mean, I think I'm very sad to say that I think that these battles have to be fought over and over and over. But like I say, 2 steps. What is it? 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or the other way around. That I hope incrementally that women like you and, to some extent like me, have really made a difference. Like, I mean, I have a 26-year-old daughter. She would never in a million years put up with the shit that I put up with in the workplace. Yeah. So there are, but there are mighty forces at work to take us back, to take away our vote, to take away our voice.
Yeah.
So, and they have to be resisted at every moment,
Yeah. My wife reminds me all the time that change takes time. I remember being inspired when I was in my 20s, started to study as a naturopath, the story of the suffragettes back,
of course,
in 1906, like seriously, in the late 1800s. Yeah. Fucking inspiring women. And that's always driven me to keep advancing what they started for us. I started this podcast because the start of last year, when I saw them taking women's names off like military and NASA records, like there's no recognition of women, black women pilots and all this kind of stuff. I went, fucking no way. I have to use my voice. So I've done it. Well, I'm doing my way. And that's what's also driven this TED Talk that comes out next week. We have to use our voices. I'm getting louder now than I ever was. It's like so much energy in me. It's like a fucking bust.
I can tell.
Some days. It's huge, Wendy.
Yeah.
And I actually lost hope at the start of last year. And I said to Alice, I don't want to live in a world where women are taken back. So far, 50 fucking years at the moment. Yeah. And she went, it's 2 steps forward, a step back, but we never go back. Yeah. They'll try, but we just keep taking the baby steps, and we all
here's the interesting thing, Jen. I'm writing a novel at the moment, which is set in 1962, which is sort of my mother's era and all that. I won't go too much into it. But you have to remember, at this time, a woman could not get a bank account without her husband say so.
The pill barely hadn't even come in at 62.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And the pill, of course, was in 1962. There was a scene in, the book where this young gal who's, gets married. It's sort of my mother's story, who was married at 16 and, whatever. But it's all sort of melded. But she goes along to a country doctor in 1962 and she asks for the pill and he says, oh, no, that would damage your future fertility. We advise the rhythm method. Have you spoken with your husband? Like we forget.
That's not that long ago.
Right. It's a mother's era.
Yeah.
And we forget how, many advancements have been made. I mean, I feel like, and I'm sure you do too, it's about standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah. Such courageous women.
Yes.
I have such respect.
Amazing.
For all the women who've come before me.
Amazing. Yeah, that's right.
Just want
that's what I feel too. Yeah. But by the same token, I don't feel that any young woman around today owes me anything. She does not owe me a thing. She is a product of her time. She is made up by a million influences. So I have no idea whether I've been of use or will continue to be of use, but I am not interested in anyone saying, well, Wendy Harmer showed me how. I'm not interested in that. This generation of women, they are extraordinary, Jen. They're so clever. They're so savvy. They're so compassionate. They're so wonderful. They know, they go into relationships mostly with their eyes wide open, I hope. I'm so much in admiration of them, I admire them so much.
And they are a product of how the you, me, and all the other women have shown up in the world. But
They
Well,
don't
we
have
open the door, they get to walk through or not.
They don't have to, but I draw the line at them of having to turn around and be grateful for who
Oh,
they
yeah,
are.
yeah. Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Who cares?
Yeah.
It's all
All right. So women who listen to this podcast are mostly midlife kind of women.
yeah.
And a lot of them still feel nervous about, which is why I wrote my podcast, my TED talk too, about taking up space using their voice. And because they've bought into the game that they're invisible as they age. And it's just like, fuck, I've never been invisible. I won't be invisible. I just get louder. But what would you say to women like that who, you know, they've had the successful career, had or have the successful careers and all the things, but all of a sudden they start buying into the game that they're invisible as they age.
Well, you know what? I mean, it's a reality. It's true. I mean, you're not. I mean, Arthur C. Brooks in the Atlantic, he writes this about this so wonderfully. He says, yes, there comes an age when the peak of your working life is over, and you do also look. Let me put it this way. I talk to this a lot about this a lot with my 70-year-old cohort, of which there are a number. And we all agree, and I feel this very strongly, that aging really requires work. You can't just age and think, oh, I'll be happy and blissful and drift into getting older, losing your relevance in the workplace, the kids moving away, the aches and pains, your role as a thought leader or whatever. These things do dissipate. They do corrode.
Yeah.
So I believe that women of my age, people of my age actually, have to do a lot of work on themselves, not only physically, keep active, all that bullshit. Yeah, fine. We know all that. You look fantastic. Other people don't, big deal, whatever. The real work comes mentally, and it's about appreciating the life that you've had. I mean, it's about setting things right that you may have think that you could have done better. It's about embarking on a new adventure. It's actually about coming to peace with death. That is the big work. And once you come to peace with death, and you really truly understand that you're not going to be here, and believe you me, I cry about this a lot. I cry about the idea that, my two kids are going to go on without me and I won't be there because I miss my own dad so much. But I think that, and I'm not a religious person, so I have to do this in a secular way, coming to real terms with one's own mortality is the big work. Now, if you work backwards from that, and I'm going to die, no one's going to remember me, whatever. You work backwards from that and you say, how am I going to make today joyous, important, say what I have to say, make a dent in the world, go smell a flower, have an experience. You work backwards from that, I think. But there is often a propensity to say, well, especially now that we're all living to in our 90s, fucking God forbid. But I mean, my mother, who's 86, she said to me, I always thought you were going to die before me. I went, oh, thanks, Mum. That's great. Anyway, whatever.
She's consistent.
Yeah, she's consistent. I think you have to come to peace with that mortality, that at the blink of an eye and the sweep of human history, and where you are just a little tiny speck. And then I think that frees you to not only say what you have to say, but help other people, facilitate what they have to say, find a purpose. That's what you do. It's all about purpose. Justin Bieber. I said to my kids last night, they were shocked. I said, at my funeral, I want to have played Justin Bieber's Purpose. And they went, Oh, fuck, Mum, that is the worst song ever. I'm going, no, it isn't. You give
Great
me
lyrics.
purpose.
Yeah.
And in every way. And it's a religious song, but I mean, it is about the people around you and, you know.
That what research is showing us that without a purpose, we fucking die.
Yeah.
We have to have a purpose to
Now,
get
that
out of bed
purpose
and
could
to
be, by the way,
live.
Jen, that purpose could be planting something that's going to come up next season. It could be looking after a bunch of
Yeah.
chooks. It
Yeah.
could be like, you know, making a ceramic pot or whatever. I don't know. Or it could be going to a community thing, or it could be this or that or whatever. My thing that I do, and I'm not a great joiner of things, but one thing that I do, I mean, really, after all my years of experience, I'm a really good MC for events.
Yeah.
So, because I know that a good MC can be the difference between your fundraiser being shit and or great. So I do a lot of events for community groups with for no fee, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just love being able to use my talent to be able to get up there and marshal the room because I'm able to say, back to me, back to me, back to me. Daughter of a headmaster. I
And
am the
everyone listens.
bossiest fucking person in the world, except for you.
I love it. Hey, how important is your sisterhood? I have to ask because you mentioned your 70-year-old cohort of mates. How important
Well,
is sisterhood to you or mates in general?
mates in general.
Mm.
I've probably got as many good old male mates as I have sisters.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So, I mean, when my husband and I got married, our bridal parties, half of his bridal party with his like female friends, and half of mine were my male friends. And then to our wedding came three of my ex-boyfriends and a couple of his ex-girlfriends, and we've always been pretty relaxed.
Love it.
Friendship, friendship. It is. I'm just about to do a podcast with one of my dear old friends, Jean Kitson, on the
Ah,
exact topic of friendship.
right.
Because here is the thing, it seems to me that needs the most nurturing as you age. It's friendship. It's attending. You know, you will know this. I'm sure you've talked about it. Attending in a very um, real and positive way to friendship. Because
Yeah.
friendships can just wither on the vine. You know that, Jen.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
have
yeah.
to be really on it. You got to remember the birthdays. You got to go to the events. You got to send the presents. You got to be
Mm.
there for the calls. You got to call. You got to do it because you know. I mean, one of the things on our deathbeds, one of the most recorded things is, I wished I'd paid more attention to my friendships.
Yeah.
And friendships can, over the years, when you get to 70, there's all these reasons why they wither.
And a lot of people withdraw as we age. And so they won't put the effort in, the mindful effort into
That's right.
to catching up with people.
Well, they move away, or they've got
Yeah.
grandkids,
Yeah.
or they, you know, withdraw for, yeah, as you say, all kinds of reasons. And so, that is my mission.
Hmm.
My mission, one of my missions in life is to, you know, my husband is the opposite. He has so many friends. Every now and then, I have to go down and scrape them off like barnacles on a barge.
So give him back.
He will spend 3 hours a day. Everyone who calls, I go, don't. He's annoying. Don't. Brendan goes, g'day, la la la.
I
Go.
love that so much.
Oh, good.
Wendy Harmer, if you could get on your soapbox of anything, because our time is ticking away, and
Yeah.
you've been up since stupid o'clock this morning. If you could get on your soapbox about anything right now, what would you want to share to the women of the world?
I would say don't take a step backwards. I would say, you know, there is forces in America that want to take away your right to vote. I mean, and there are, you know, these forces in the world that's saying, I'm an inadequate man because I'm an incel because women's power has frightened me. I would just say, stay in your power, step ahead in your power, and be as fierce as you ever were, and be even fiercer, because there are so many thieves out there who want to make you less powerful. And don't be vigilant, and don't give in to them, and be your wonderful and true and extraordinary self. That's what I want to say. And don't give up an inch.